Thank you, Scott. Well, it's nice to see everyone friendly and chatting. I appreciate that, but we are a couple minutes past 5, and we're supposed to start at 5. So I'm going to officially call this meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Committee of the Whole to order for Monday, February 5th, 2024. It's nice to see my colleagues here. I know one of them will not be here this evening. I'm not sure, maybe the other one is late. I haven't heard anything. So, and nice to see folks here in the chambers as well. So our first order of business, Clerk Borling, call the roll.
Commissioner Cooney. Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I have a motion to excuse the absent commissioners, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess, supported by Commissioner Decker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right, motion passes. Next is Communications, Manager Ritzma.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity for public comments. The public comment period at the Committee of the Whole is 2 minutes. Just a reminder, there is a public comment period available at our regular business meeting that starts at 7 o'clock, and that is a 3-minute public comment period. So if you are here in the chambers and you would like to make a public comment for the Committee of the Whole meeting, there we go. Come forward. Please state your name, whether you live in the city, and you'll have 2 minutes. Hi.
B. Hannah Davies. Yes, I do live in the city, and I just want to encourage you, if you haven't yet, to please watch the video link that I sent to you at the last meeting, and that's called How Finland Ended Homelessness. It's such a great example. Finland's a small country, but they have some big cities, Helsinki and others, where homeless people were sleeping in all the doorways of the businesses, the same issues that cities across the United States have. And they decided to use housing first, an idea they got from the United States, and do it thoroughly and well. And there are some other ideas in the video as well, but that's the key thing of committing to real housing instead of sheltering, and to really create the apartments and find the sources of funds to make that happen. And with the governor's budget coming up February 7th, with her commitment to trying to expend a lot more money for housing in the whole state, if she gets enough support for that, there will be a new opportunity for us. So I really hope you would look at that video. I'm happy to send it to you again if you can't find it, because Finland really ended homelessness and said, you can do it too. You've got so much more resources than we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to take advantage of this public comment period? Seeing no one. Yes, please come forward. You'll have 2 minutes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caleb Leonard. I'm a new resident of Kalamazoo, and I'm just here to excitedly announce City Council for the very first time. I'm a veteran and a former employee of various cities, so it's very special to be able to speak freely for the very first time as a citizen. It's very special to me. I was expecting it to happen later, but opportunity arises. Fortunately, as a very practiced person, I've had a chance to review some of the things you're about to discuss. And as a new resident, some of the things that attracted to me, more than just being a fifth-generation Michigander, I'd love to share some of those experiences with you. I had prepared a few remarks for later, but there's all sorts of great things. My experience moving over here, moving into Vine, my neighbors, the shops around, everything that I've seen so far. I know there's struggles here in Kalamazoo, but that's the same with with Michigan, with the world. I grew up with that. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to interacting and helping and being part of this community. I really feel like I've found home, and I just wanted to say it to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers who would like to take advantage of this public comment period at this time? Seeing no one, next we are going to be moving on to our work session. Manager Ritzma.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We have 2 items on our work session agenda this evening. First is going to be a presentation by Jane Ghosh. She's the president and CEO of Discover Kalamazoo. So, Jane, if you'd like to come forward.
Welcome, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me here today. I'm very excited to give you an update on 3 things today. The first is some geolocation data. When I was here before, I shared some, so I have an update for you. The second is data, the first on visitor spending, the second on geolocation, and then third, what our priorities are for the year to come. So the first on visitor spending, and visitor spending really is the primary way that Discover Kalamazoo measures our success. When visitors come into Kalamazoo County, people who don't live here, and they spend money, that supports businesses, it creates job opportunities, it creates entrepreneurship opportunities, but fundamentally because visitors are going to restaurants and attractions and so forth, it creates amenities for residents, like our newest resident, to enjoy when they're here. So that's why Discover Kalamazoo exists, is to drive up that visitor spending, and I'm pleased to announce that in 2022, visitor spending grew 17% compared to 2021, which was great. We recovered very quickly from the pandemic. And I think I mentioned this to you last time I was here, but in 2021, Kalamazoo County was actually the fastest growing county in all of Michigan out of the 83 counties. And in 2022, we were the 7th fastest growing county in all of Michigan in terms of visitor spending. And every county in Michigan, fared differently in the pandemic. A couple didn't even decline in visitor spending in 2020 because they were just, the kind of places people wanted to go during the heart of the pandemic. And then some counties, maybe more reliant on international travelers or very large conventions, still haven't recovered yet. But you put those 2 numbers together and kind of take out those years in the middle of the pandemic, and actually of all counties in Michigan with a significant amount of visitor spending, Kalamazoo County is, in fact, the fastest growing in terms of visitor spending, comparing 2022 data to 2019 data. And actually, as you can see over here, overall, West Michigan as a whole is doing very well. So no one comes to Kalamazoo County to see Discover Kalamazoo. They come to go to the restaurants and the attractions and the events that all the people here in Kalamazoo County work so hard to create. And we really appreciate having so many wonderful things to market to bring visitors in. So let's talk about those visitors when they're coming. So this next slide, this is just visits to the city of Kalamazoo, not the county, the city of Kalamazoo, by people who live and work at least 50 miles away. And as you can see here, there are people come, every day of the week, there are people from out of town here in Kalamazoo, the city of Kalamazoo. But there are very specific things which tend to bring in those out-of-towners. So you see 2 of the highest days for out-of-town visitation are when we have Western football games. It's not a surprise. That other Western date right there at the end of August, that's actually a move-in date for Western. So I think it just goes to reinforce how very fortunate we are to have these institutions of higher learning here in our community, Western, K College, and KVCC. They bring so much to our community, and that includes, out-of-town visitors. You can see then some of the sporting events and other events that bring in people from out of town. So MHSAA is the Michigan High School Athletic Association. We, for many years in a row, have hosted the state wrestling finals. We will be hosting that again in a couple of weeks here. And if you're not a participant in that, you might not even know it's happening in the community, but it's actually one of the biggest events that happens every year in terms of bringing in those out-of-towners and big economic impact. And then My Way is also a wrestling group. Both of those events happen there at Wings Event Center. And then for the first year, this past year, the Expo Center hosted Grand Rapids Comic-Con. They called it their spring road trip. And I'm pleased to say that the Kalamazoo County Parks and the Expo Center did such an amazing job hosting them that Grand Rapids Comic-Con, for their spring event, signed a contract for 3 successive years. So they're going to continue to bring people in here to the city of Kalamazoo, which is really exciting. And you have to mention down in the end the holiday parade. It was an absolutely phenomenal event for our community, but it also did bring in people from out of town there that day of the holiday parade. And it was actually the best attended holiday parade. Our data goes back to 2017. It was the best attended holiday parade. And you can see it now. This is just visits to downtown Kalamazoo by anyone who doesn't live or work in downtown Kalamazoo. So this chart here would include visits by anyone who lives in Kalamazoo who doesn't actually live downtown. And you can see again the success of that holiday parade. And then also Pride. So that jumpstart weekend, that first weekend of June, is so important. I know that the DDA and the DAGA and all the city of Kalamazoo work really hard to make sure that that first weekend in June works well, and it really does. And I have to give a special appreciation to Outfront Kalamazoo. We have one of the best attended Pride Fests in the entire state. And that brings in not just residents, but out-of-town visitors as well. You can see this is now, this chart, includes local. The other 3 points there, I also just wanted to mention, obviously Western is not in downtown Kalamazoo, but downtown Kalamazoo benefits. When things happen at Western, people come downtown. So again, we all we all believe we benefit from having a vibrant downtown Kalamazoo. And even though Western's campus is not right contiguous with downtown, it really does matter to those downtown businesses. So we really all we believe, and Discover Kalamazoo works really hard to continue to support Western and all of our institutions of higher learning. So how are we doing to continue to bring in visitors? We received a grant from the County of Kalamazoo, part of which we are using specifically to bring in diverse visitors, and one of the ways we've been doing that is bringing in diverse influencers. So these are just some examples of diverse influencers that we brought in during the year of 2023. We had Black visitors, LGBTQ plus visitors, Asian visitors, and just anyone who could come in and help tell the word to their followers that Kalamazoo is a welcoming place. And we always feature locations within the city of Kalamazoo when we bring in influencers, because the city really, as it does to our newest resident, really sells itself. And then that grant also enabled us to print our travel guide in Spanish for the first time. So for a few years, we've had a translated guide electronically, but thanks to the County of Kalamazoo American Rescue Plan grant, we now have printed versions of our travel guide in Spanish. We know that there's a very large Spanish-speaking community here in Kalamazoo. There's also a very large Spanish-speaking community within our Drive Market, and we want to help support them and encourage them to come visit Kalamazoo. There was one other point I just wanted to make about what are the institutions that are really important to the downtown Kalamazoo. I've talked about Western. The other one I just wanted to mention, because I think it can go maybe unnoticed, certainly by us here at Discover Kalamazoo, is the importance of Bronson to downtown Kalamazoo. So this is a foot traffic chart of foot traffic to downtown from anyone who doesn't live or work specifically in downtown. And it's a heat map. You can see where the strong red dot there is. The largest point of foot traffic really in that downtown area was that area where Bronson was. And when people come, Bronson drives foot traffic. When people come to Bronson, and not actually Borges does as well, but that was just a downtown map. And when people are coming to visit a relative in the hospital, they do go to a restaurant. When they're there to see a doctor, they do stop at a retail shop on the way back. So again, we're very fortunate to have Bronson in our community and Borges. So a little bit then I wanted to share about how are we going to continue to drive that great growth in visitor spending going forward. First, how are we going to measure our success? The last time we'd set our organizational objective and goal, our goal was to get back to pre-pandemic levels of visitor spending. We set that goal in 2021. We didn't learn until January of 23 that we'd actually accomplished that goal in 21. So it was time to reset our goal. And we've decided this time to set our goal as what is Kalamazoo County's share of overall visitor spending in Michigan. And we did that for a few reasons. The two most important are, you're all aware of the Travel Michigan part of MEDC that does the Pure Michigan campaign. The funding for that campaign can vary significantly year to year, but what they do is they get people to consider Michigan as a destination for their travel, and that includes Kalamazoo. And we have no control over how much funding in any given year that Pure Michigan campaign is going to get. We obviously are always advocating for them to get as much funding as possible, but we have no control over it. And then the second is about half of visitors to Kalamazoo County come from within Michigan. And we all know that we are trying to drive the population here within Michigan. MEDC is investing in a significant talent attraction campaign. As hopefully population rises within Michigan, Kalamazoo County will benefit from that. And again, that's not something we have control over, but something that we can benefit from. So we've set our goal to get to a 3% share of visitor spending in Michigan. The last 2 years, we've actually achieved kind of all-time high in terms of share, getting up to about 2.5%, which is about, when you think of just the population within Michigan, that's about where we should be. Up until now, we've kind of under-indexed. So our goal is to get to where we over-index in visitor spending as a county in Michigan. We are setting 2030 as our when we want to achieve that by. There's a lot of great stuff happening between now and 2030 that we can leverage, including the Downtown Event Center, which we are absolutely over the moon about. And my team is out there. I had somebody on my team yesterday, or on Friday, out trying to pitch that to an event that's currently organized in Novi, and how could we get that to come here to Kalamazoo, for example. Also, a project that I'm going to talk to you in a little bit could also really help us get to this goal. So how are we doing it? Much of our strategy is still the same as last time I presented. Our first priority is always what we call the casual road trip. So how are we going to get those people who are sitting in Chicago or Detroit or Lansing and saying, what's a fun place to go for the weekend, to encourage them to choose Kalamazoo? We spend 98% of our advertising dollars outside the county, because the people we are trying to attract are the ones who are outside the county. So you may never see an ad for Discover Kalamazoo, but that's by design, because you're already here. So we've engaged an agency, KPS3, to help us with that advertising, and I look forward to coming back in a few months to let you know kind of what that advertising idea is. The second, and this is, we just announced a press release, we just issued a press release on this a couple hours ago. We received a grant from the state, a matching funds, to do a full community accessibility audit for Kalamazoo County with Wheel the World, using the Disability Network of Southwest Michigan to actually do the work here in the community. So with that grant, we're going to be able to do an accessibility audit of 130 locations across the county, where they'll have a 250-point kind of checklist mapping system. They'll get us all the data that people with accessibility needs have, so that they can make an informed decision, either whether to come to Kalamazoo or where to go into Kalamazoo once they've chosen Kalamazoo as their destination. So it's a really exciting initiative. I left a card on each of your desks. Locations, restaurants, attractions, hotels, obviously, can sign up to be included in that very comprehensive accessibility audit. Next is, how do we future-proof our meetings and sports development? I've mentioned before, we're very reliant on some groups that come year after year after year. Our job is to bring in potential new business so that we kind of future-proof ourselves. In 2023, we had the most leads we've ever had, even prior to the pandemic, of potential new business that we could bring here to Kalamazoo. And we want that to continue in 2024. We hit 96,000 room nights worth of new leads last year, and our goal this year is 110,000. So the team's out there pounding the pavement at trade shows and so forth, but also using new online platforms, because sometimes meeting planners don't go to trade shows, but they put their RFPs out on these online platforms, and so we're increasingly using those to help diversify our business. Speaking of new business, for the first time in a very long time, in April, Kalamazoo is going to be the host city for the Pure Michigan Governor's Conference on Tourism. That will happen. The host hotel is the Radisson. It's happening on April 9th through 11th. And I'd like to invite all of you. Discover Kalamazoo is hosting the opening reception on the evening of the 9th at 6 o'clock at Bell's. And all of the City Commission is invited to that reception. We'd love to see you there, mingling with everyone across the state that's involved in the hospitality industry. Our fourth priority is resident and partner development. It was how nice to follow the public comment from someone here who just moved to our community, because the key change that we made in this priority is actually our role in trying to attract talent and students here to our community. So up until now, we've really been focused on visitors, but we realize that if someone's going to move here, usually it starts with a visit. And so to the degree that the state is investing a lot of money to try to attract people here as future residents, we realize that we can partner with the state and with Southwest Michigan First to leverage that inspiration to come and visit first and give them a great experience while they're here will hopefully encourage them to move back. And that goes for students as well. And then lastly, lead destination development. So, that is one of our roles in the community, is not just to market what's here today, but to advocate for what should be here tomorrow. And the event center was absolutely a top priority for us. Now that is going to happen, and as I say, now we're leveraging it. Now that moves over to another strategy. What's next? We feel very, very excited about the potential for an indoor amateur youth sports facility. So what is here is an image of what it could be, which shows 8 basketball courts that could also be used for 16 volleyball courts that would be available for local use, local resident use most of the week, and then on weekends allow us to host tournaments. In 2023 and 2022, 25% of the sports room nights that Discover Kalamazoo brought in were with hockey, ice hockey, one sport, because we have the right facilities to host hockey tournaments. A very small fraction of kids play hockey. 40 times more kids play basketball and volleyball in our 20 million people target market than play ice hockey. So just think of the economic impact that it could have if we could host tournaments here. And there are no equivalent competitive facilities within the radius that we are looking at so we think this is a very big opportunity, and you'll be hearing more from us about this. We are just commencing a site selection exercise to figure out where in the county this makes the most sense to put a facility like this. And with that, that's our total strategy, and we appreciate your support and partnership in terms of executing it and hopefully continuing to drive visitor spending for the benefit of the residents of Kalamazoo.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's always a pleasure having you here, and I appreciate all the work you're doing and your team. Please pass our gratitude and thanks on to your entire team. Do you have a moment if there are any questions?
Please. Yeah.
Any questions, commissioners? Yes, Vice Mayor Hess.
Jane, I want to thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to hear what's going on, even though full disclosure, I do sit on the advisory council, and I love the energy that's happening around Discover Kalamazoo. That said, it's not lost on me that when you look at the graph on all visits to downtown, it looks like an EKG, right? It looks like a little EKG, and so therefore, it is the heartbeat of Kalamazoo. So downtown, what I heard from you is that downtown is the heartbeat of Kalamazoo, and it would behoove us all to pay attention to that, to put energy into it, and to welcome those. I heard that I couldn't attend the chili cook-off, but I heard it was just tremendous.
Yes.
One question. So the Street Ride Festival that happens every fall, I mean, I know there are several of those kind of things that happen. What kind of impact did that have on the economics of this town? And did you do anything for the first time last year that we haven't done before?
So the National Street Ride Association has met in Kalamazoo County at the Fairgrounds and the Expo Center. I believe this past time was their 30th or 40th time that they've come. And for the first time ever this past fall, we did a parade. So in some of the other communities that the street riders go to, because many of them will spend the year when they have time off, going from one event to another. And we'd heard that in other communities, they do like, a car parade. They spend so much time on these cars, they love to show them off. And so we did do a car parade, and we were delighted to have participants in our car parade there. I did not bring the numbers from 2023 with me, but to my recollection in prior years, that event alone has been worth $1.2 million to Kalamazoo County. So, yeah.
Thank you. Keep up the good work with all of that. And again, like Mayor said, kudos to the team.
Yeah. But when we think of the Street Rods as an event that's come here year after year after year, even though it does have, and that I'm working off memory for those statistics, the participation in Street Rods by the Street Rodders is declining. So we consider that 2 challenges for Discover Kalamazoo. One is, how can we drive up participation in Street Rods? And that's by making sure they have a great experience, like the car parade. We brought the automotive technology students from KRISA out to Street Rods and allowed them to help me choose the Kalamazoo, pick the winner of the Kalamazoo prize. to get the next generation of street rodders involved, so to speak. But then also, that really highlights to us the importance of what are the new events that are going to come to continue to allow us to drive room nights. What are the new emerging hobbies, that can help fill the top of the funnel?
Actually, that just speaks to the creativity of your team and the work that you're doing. So again, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Pradel?
Gene, thanks for being here. Question for you. In terms of the Placer AI data that you look at, so people who don't live or work in downtown Kalamazoo, what are you seeing in terms of the relative foot traffic health of our downtown in the last year or 2 years?
Yeah,
Any trends
and I
related?
shared this with the Downtown Chamber of Commerce a couple weeks ago. Overall, our downtown is healthy. So foot traffic is up. I know that, on any given day, it might not be up, but on the whole, year on year, downtown foot traffic is up, and especially we had a very good holiday period, really kicked off by that holiday parade. Obviously, we benefited from the weather. It was a beautiful day there for the parade.
Are you finding that that growth is statistically significant? I mean, is it negligible or is it a pretty significant boost?
It's mid to high single digits, so I don't know if it passes statistical significance, but and really, what really matters though is the impact to the retailers, right? And are they seeing the benefit of that? And I know that we were constrained, as maybe. I am a very strong believer that what we are doing with the roads is absolutely the right direction for the city of Kalamazoo. I think that slowing down the traffic as we have done on West Michigan, which is the road that my office is on, adding the bike lanes, I think is going to help us be this city of the future and the city that people are going to want to come visit. And I firmly believe that the two-way road conversion will only increase the economic impact because it'll slow the traffic down. It'll allow people to discover, more things. How many years has it been since anyone has driven west on West Michigan and seen things from the other side of the road, right? You only can drive east on West Michigan. So what are people not discovering? Because when they're driving, they're looking, to their right and not to their left. Who knows what there is, for people to discover. But that work will be disruptive. And it's incumbent on us to think about, and I'm sure that to some degree the work in 2023 was disruptive to the businesses, at that time, the work that was done in 2023. So how can we, and Discover Kalamazoo is ready to partner with the city on how can we help sustain those businesses during what is quite likely to be a much even more disruptive, 3 to 4 years to come, because we need to make sure it's absolutely the right thing to do. We need to make sure that the businesses are still there when that hard work is done. Yeah.
And might be putting you a little bit on the spot for this question, but you eat, live, and breathe this work, so hopefully you might be able to answer this. You mentioned one example of what your feedback is from visitors is that the traffic calming work that we're doing in the two-way conversion is, what Discover Kalamazoo wants to advocate for, and that you get the sense through your research and findings that visitors are appreciating that work as well. Are there any other things that we as a municipality could be doing that you're hearing from visitors that maybe we should focus on or keep doing? Or
I absolutely think the events, we talked about it as a heartbeat, right? Events work, events drive people. We should absolutely keep that up. All the work that's happening to bring those events and create that kind of vibrant atmosphere. Absolutely something that's working. One of the challenges that we do hear from visitors, and every city has it, and one of the other prior speakers was talking about the issue of people not having housing, and what is the impact that has on downtown, and for example, one of the things that I'm working on with one of my colleagues from the city in the back there is the train station area. So Kalamazoo and Ann Arbor are the two most used train stations in the state of Michigan. And Kalamazoo, we could absolutely be marketing, people come to Kalamazoo via train. We could absolutely be marketing that more and more. We're hesitant to do that until we can guarantee a very a great visitor experience if they come to Kalamazoo and get off the train. And right now, I have concerns that it would not be a great experience. And one of the things that, I understand is because the services are concentrated right there by the train station, and the services, there's gaps in service hours that people have no place to go. And so where they go is the one place that kind of seems like it's a reasonable place to hang out, and that ends up being the train station. And what is then the experience of someone coming? Obviously, the bigger priority is making sure that people who need services get services. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand the importance of having the right services for the community, but it does have an impact on visitors and the way that we market to visitors.
You had mentioned that the Kalamazoo Comic-Con, that is a 3-year extension for that as well. So is it going to
Technically, it's still the Grand Rapids Comic-Con, but yes.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there any plans to rebrand it where it would, specifically become the Kalamazoo, Comic-Con?
I'm not sure. I would think they'd want to think about that. But.
Gotcha. All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gene. Yes, Commissioner Decker.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for being here. This is great to see. I was very excited to see this in Spanish. I was like, wait a minute, let me take a look at this. So I'm really excited of how you're partnering with the wheeltheworld.com. So I'm hoping that as they work with you and you work with them, hopefully we can get our public works department in there too, as they're also planning when they do upgrades to our streets to make everything accessible there. I do believe that you are going to hit that 3% increase in spending, especially with the event center that's going to be coming down here pretty soon. I believe that begins at the end of this year, hopefully ending construction, I think 2027, they said. So I appreciate all you're doing and bringing people to the city of Kalamazoo.
Thank you very much. And I didn't connect the dots between the event center, but then also that amateur and your sports facility. If we can make that happen here in Kalamazoo County before 2030, that's what's going to help us achieve our goal. That is absolutely going to be a game changer for us.
Anyone else? No? Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you.
Manager Ritzma.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Next up, we will be talking about the Arcadia Festival Site project. So just to remind folks, at the last meeting when we brought the 2024 budget for approval, there was a line item in our ARPA funding that included dollars for the Arcadia Festival Site, and we pulled those dollars from that budget with the idea that we would bring back more information. So our Assistant City Manager, Rebecca Kick, is here to present on the project itself and the merits of the project and why we think it's important to move forward. We're hoping after this to get, as next steps, to get direction from the commission on where to go with this as far as bringing it back for approval, or we're going to have to think of other ways to, as you remember, the ARPA dollars need to be committed by the end of the year. Of this year. So we'll have to, but we're hoping tonight to get some direction from the commission on that. So Rebecca?
Thank you so much for that introduction, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I look forward to discussing this project with you. So first, I want to say I apologize. I wasn't at the meeting that was when all of this was discussed. I think we probably could have wrapped up a lot of things, but I'm so glad I'm here tonight and that I have a presentation prepared for you, and we'll hopefully be able to answer any questions that we need to find the direction for this project. With the Arcadia Festival site, we have both short-term goals and long-term goals. The festival site is 20 years old, and we have a lot of failing infrastructure, including the pedestrian bridge is in need of maintenance. We had a report that was done this past year that shows us that we are behind maintenance on that bridge. We have lighting that is damaged. We have a stage that doesn't meet National Act sort of standards any longer. Our pavilion isn't well used. We had to demolish the playground because the pieces and parts that were part of that initial playground are no longer sold. So we have these short-term challenges that we do have to address, but we also have a long-term vision for what this festival site is. And I'm so grateful to have gone after Jane because she really set the table with the data for how people are walking through the downtown and how we are bolstering our economic development. So I've given you 2 plans also on your desk, but this is a perspective aerial view of what the overall site could look like. Now, I want to be able to clear up some things that were talked about at that meeting in the past. One, which is there are no plans to fence off the entire site so that it's not open to the public. That never has been a plan. So I'm sorry that there was misinformation about that. The ARPA funds that would be asked for are a match for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation $2 million grant that we were successful in achieving because of the plans that we have in this community. Imagine Kalamazoo, the Downtown Comprehensive Plan, the Downtown Public Realm Plan, and the DDA and the DAGA Strategic Plan. All of those plans aligned very well to give us this competitive edge on what this grant could be used for. The funds from the MEDC, I also just want to put another finer point on it, are specifically for public space and public space enhancement. And that's why I feel like we were very well aligned and set up to get those funds. Now, the ARPA funds would be used as match to those funds, and so we would be leveraging them. We've also had additional conversations with other local philanthropy based on some of these drawings. These drawings were done during the Public Realm Plan for downtown as we looked at the connectivity between the newly proposed event center and the Arcadia Festival site. And what was the creek going to become? And how is the creek really going to become this amazing walkable space? What was the North Mall going to look like? How are we getting people from those hotels and from the restaurants up to these spaces? Right now, the walkability it's okay. It's not great. You know, there's not a lot of benches, there's not a lot of furniture in the Arcadia Festival site. So, you know, it's not used the same way that Bronson Park is used. So in this vision, when we presented this at the engagements in early 2020, this was early 2022, when we were doing these plans, these are some of the visions that came out of that. This is a perspective view from Eleanor Street, looking into what would be the new festival site. Over to one side, you can see kind of a tall columns and kind of a big roofed building. That would become a new pavilion, which could have a flexible stage underneath it. So that's the other part of what the Arcadia Festival site is needing right now is flexibility. Big acts, small acts, big celebrations, small celebrations. It also needs more community space. So I'm going to show you one last visual image, and this is engaging the creek. And this is another thing that we were told by many of those that we engaged was, why can't we get down to the water? Isn't there a safe way to get down to the water? And so in these visions, this amphitheater was created so that, again, the bridge we are proposing to be demolished. It needs to be demolished. That's kind of part of the short-term work, not the long-term work. It needs significant help right now. So again, I just wanted to clear up the any kind of issues that the plans that we were putting forward. This is a public space. It is welcoming to all, and that's what it's meant to do. This is what these funds are meant to be a part of. It's supposed to be, again, it's our piazza. It's our public space. I wanted to bring the existing plan to your attention so that this way I can show you that even though I've proposed that, you saw some other buildings along the front of Kalamazoo Avenue, that we're actually not losing space, we're actually gaining space because we're utilizing the acreage better in this particular configuration. So I've given you a triangle that shows you the existing size of the site, the playground, the pavilion, which is a very small space right now, and then the larger yellow circle kind of shows you like this is going to be that main piece of where the space is really reconfigured. Because right now it's just kind of a pathway through and it has a lot of landscaping, and you're going to see that come into active use. And then the trail, as you see it now, it kind of comes from the corner up there on Kalamazoo Avenue and Edward Street and then meanders through, and you're going to see the trail really straighten out and become a little bit easier to navigate. So I had mentioned to you this budget, and again, the opportunity to apply for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Revitalization and Placemaking Grant, and as well as what we're talking to other funders about. The total budget, and again, this would just be for the phase 1 improvements. We have the potential to raise the $5.1 million towards this phase 1. Now, in the first picture I showed you, that's the big master plan, that's the big vision. So I'm going to show you what we could accomplish in that phase 1 as well with this $5 million budget. Okay. So I gave you this map. It's blown up, and it does say phase 1 at the top of it. And this is where you'll see improvements to the intersection area that's over by Eleanor Street. You will see a promenade, it's like a big wide sidewalk right underneath the large green. And all of that grass would be planted, all of that would be taken care of. The ellipse would be planted. We would be able to have the playground be installed. We would have perimeter seating. We would have an area for a temporary stage or a tent to be set up for events. All of the power, the electricity, all of the plumbing, all of the infrastructure for the larger master plan would be completed. We would have enough budget to do that. And the amphitheater to the water if we remove the bridge. And we do have the budget. If we have the full $5 million, we have the budget to be able to remove the bridge as well. So this kind of shows you, again, with the full master plan, how those pieces fit together. So you can see where the whole triangle fits. It's just moved further down to the site. You actually add space because you've got the new amphitheater, so I've circled that in yellow for you. The playground comes up further, kind of to the north. The 3 buildings that are highlighted in the red color that were the pavilion would become an indoor community space. So something that we've heard from event planners is that when there's pride or a band, they don't have space for changing, they don't have space for all of their gear, the equipment, their clothes, everything. In fact, when I met with the Promise to talk about their events and how they utilize the space, they said, yeah, we let all of the performers from Pride actually change over here, and then they run across the street. And, so to have a building that could accommodate them, music performers and the fashion shows and all the things that go on, if they had a building there, and that's something that we wanted to provide, was an actual space. The other thing is that Parks and Rec would also be able to have equipment there. You could have a summer camp here now. You could do other youth activities. The community hub, they listed off several different teen activities that the Promise would love to be able to have a space for. And then we started to talk about KidNet, and then we started talking nobody's doing these kind of youth and teen things in the downtown because we don't really have a space for that. And so thinking about how this could be a real community hub, kind of building, we could see the space activated a lot more, both during the summer and during the school year. And then at the very north end of this, we see the opportunity for a mixed-use building, whether we do retail, housing above, something on Kalamazoo Avenue that is really needed. Again, thank you, Jane, for setting me up. You know, we're going to have two-way traffic on Kalamazoo Avenue. People aren't used to coming east on Kalamazoo Avenue. They're not used to stopping on Kalamazoo Avenue for things when they're coming home, only when they're going to work to grab that coffee from McDonald's, you know, on their way. But, you know, we need to think about more housing on Kalamazoo Avenue. We need to think about more commercial and retail and things like that on Kalamazoo Avenue. And this is a great opportunity for us to have that amenity right next to the Arcadia Festival Place. And then you can see the trail coming directly off of Edward Street and then continuing down Eleanor. So doesn't have to do that wiggly meander thing anymore. We would actually have, we keep calling it kind of our internal festival street within this plan, which could have you know, food trucks and again be much more of kind of a promenade through the site. So tonight, what I'm really hoping is that you know we can have a great discussion facilitated by the city manager, the mayor, and really seeking direction on these current funding sources. You know, again, we have the award letter from MEDC for $2 million, but it's certainly contingent on matching those funds. And additionally, we have challenges and things that we need to fix right now. I know that we want to have more events in this space, but the stage simply isn't large enough to get the national acts that we want. The pavilion covers, I've researched and I was initially getting some of these grants to get them replaced. I cannot replace them. They were so bespoke. The engineer that created those pavilion covers, he's actually passed away and his company doesn't exist anymore. We have failing infrastructure. The water feature within the park doesn't work any longer. We did some electrical repairs on the panel last year to get through some of the events. Again, another big cost, while I said we would not permanently fence off the site, you do have to install fencing for events that you're going to serve liquor at. So would like to use, again, some of the funds in this phase one to purchase that fencing so that we don't have to ask our event producers to install it. It's about $1,600 when Wolverine comes out and installs that fencing for an event planner. But if we already had the fencing and we were able to store it, then you know it would just be part of the ongoing cost, as opposed to that event producer having to pay for the rental of the festival site, the cleaning of the festival site, and the fencing, and again, blocking off the streets. That's also very expensive. And so all the costs add up. We can't right now really afford to replace the lights, to take care of the bridge. This is our asset. It is the city's. The DDA and the DEGA took care of it for a while, but the Kalamazoo Downtown Partnership no longer exists right now. And they had a full-time staff person that used to oversee those events and bring the events in, and we don't have that. Parks and Recreation is doing a knockout job right now. They're doing a great job. Deb Droppers has been an incredible partner in that work and making sure that the festivals go on as best they can. But we know that we need to do something with this site in order to make it through the next 20 years with a great investment. And that also means paying attention to the maintenance and the operations of the site. And we believe that the reconfiguration would also bring those costs way down. So landscaping costs, we're cutting a lot of the different types of landscaping so that it would be more native. We wouldn't have to maintain it so much. We've got a lot more grass now than paving, so we're trying to make some better decisions. But until I can understand what direction we're going to have on our current funding source, then I can think about the next steps that are below that. How we would engage a landscape architect, how we would do community engagement, how we would move forward with the next steps of the project.
Thank you very much, Assistant City Manager Kick. I really appreciate it, and thanks for bringing us all this information. I think now's the time, I'm sure you're ready for this, for questions. So is there someone else who'd like to start off with some questions about this plan and the funding? Okay, Vice, go ahead, okay.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for taking the time to present to us today. I think this presentation did a lot to kind of dispel some of the misinformation that was out there and clear things up, so I appreciate that. One of my concerns was about accessibility and affordability after we go through these renovations. It sounds like, the park will still be accessible to the public. The fence will be temporary just for events. What about cost to, I guess, organizations that are looking to rent out this festival site for an event? Are those costs going to be now inflated to cover some of these costs, or?
I'm going to be tentative in some of these answers. I'm trying to do my best, but no, we would not. Currently, right now, I know a lot of event planners say that it's very expensive to utilize the site for an event, correct? And it is because you have to do so many of these things, like install the fencing, have the site power washed and cleaned, and that's on your dollar, plus the $750 a day fee that it costs us to be able to set up the site for an event. If you want to block off Edward Street, for food trucks and things like that, that's even another additional cost, which is why in the new configuration, we were thinking, well, let's put this promenade, that goes through, so maybe you don't have to block off Edward Street if we have a space for food trucks within the site. If we have this indoor space and we can store some things, gosh, could we purchase the fencing? Could that cut down on cost? Also, by seeking grants for all of these and hopefully some sponsorships, like for the stage or for the amphitheater, we're hoping that we will completely cover the costs so that we're not, and bringing down the maintenance and operations of the site. Again, right now, to replace the globes inside of the lighting fixtures that are inside the park are $1,000 each, and that's just to replace the light bulb. You can't just lift up the glass and put the light bulb in. You have to replace the whole piece. And then if you probably have never noticed this, but there is a round globe on the top of every single column that goes around on Edward Street and Kalamazoo Avenue. Those are $400 a piece. Again, no shade on the people who chose this the first time, right? Love you, it was beautiful. But when you think about what you have to charge somebody to replace the things that are there now, we can't charge enough. And so there's 8 of these globes that are smashed all along Edward Street. And, every day I'm looking at my budget going, I can't in my conscience spend that much money replacing these things. And so, the park is starting to look really shabby because we just don't have the funds to be able to spend on that. So what we're trying to do with the new design is not put those really high maintenance kind of things in there. We want low maintenance plants, grass, concrete, a tall pavilion that, you can bring your own stage. You can bring your own lighting. We've got the power. We've got the investment to do that. And hopefully with the community space, again, we're using it in a little different way as well. It won't just be for big, huge events, like Pride and absolutely Pride and Ribfest and, all of those, but also smaller things, like when the Promise does their signing day, and the backpack giveaways and other things that people are going to come up with because we're changing the way that it looks. So that, it is our hope and it is a goal of this project that we bring down the cost of what it takes to hold an event there, because we know it's a barrier that we're aware of. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Good question. Other questions about the project? Yeah, Vice Mayor Hess.
Great. Again, Rebecca, thank you. I appreciate your work and the amount of the work that the staff has put into this. I'm sure it's been months, if not years. So I appreciate that work. And you coming today to kind of bring us up to speed here. Question one, you mentioned in your presentation plumbing, like you would have to do the plumbing for this. Help me out, where would the plumbing be? When I hear plumbing, I'm thinking bathrooms. So like one thing you didn't mention was, we take the fencing away as a cost for people who are doing events, and they still have to bring in
porta potties.
So help me out with when you said plumbing, what you meant by that.
Sure, a couple of things. So, of course, in the community building that you can see at the top, again, I'm pointing towards the red box, we definitely have public bathrooms in there. We'll probably never have enough public bathrooms in there, though, for 8,000 people to come visit. So while there would be bathrooms in there, certainly for smaller events or things, and they're going to be public bathrooms, but for an event like Pride or for like Ribfest, because so many people come, you still have to have porta potties for those. But so the community hub space would be plumbed out, and we love an ice rink as well. So we're thinking outdoor skating, and that was always, a hope for that area. We know that there are some the folks that helped us with these sketches were really helpful, that there's portable ice rinks, but you have the plumbing for it, they bring in the apparatus, they fill it with ice, and then they have generators that keep it cold all the time. So yeah, ice rink.
Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Okay, and you did explain about the fencing and that it would be temporary and we would store it somewhere.
Yeah.
Or is it like a folding kind of fence?
I don't know. Again, this is something that we would, once we get that landscape architect on board, that they can help us figure out. Across the street at Edwards, where I think it was Greek Fest and Ribfest used to really expand, and they would even go into the parking lot, like at the beer exchange in that area. That fence is removable. It comes up. So, that's what I'm thinking about is, do we have the infrastructure that's in the ground, and then it's stored in one of these buildings, and you kind of take these panels out and you put them up, for the event, and then it's complies with the state regulations to be able to serve alcohol. And when the event is over, you pick up sticks and you put the fence back.
Thank you, and that makes sense to me, because I think one of the issues, especially for the public, was perception, and that that it was going to be this fenced-in site to keep people out. So that was what I got. That was the feedback that I got from a lot of folks. That it was we wanted to keep people out, but I think what needed to be known was that because of state laws and so on around serving alcohol at events, we needed to be able to fence in, and that the cost was sometimes prohibitive for other events to be able to come in.
Yes.
So. I'd be interested in seeing what that fencing actually might look like. But I think the lesson learned there is right, you either win or you learn. And we learned it's really communication of these ideas to the public. And it is all here in IK 2025. So I appreciate you bringing that to us. Last question. We kind of just ended with, there's housing and mixed use up here. Is there a developer in mind for that? Because Kalamazoo, the city, isn't going to put up housing, right? What would be the process for making that known and putting out RFPs and things like that?
So, we received the revitalization and placemaking grant from Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We are a redevelopment ready community with MEDC, and a couple years ago, we did a site development process with them for 140 South Edwards Street, and we have already engaged them. If, again, we want to move this project forward, we would be able to work with the MEDC through Redevelopment Ready Communities to do a site proposal. And so they'll help us with technical assistance, and they'll put together a proposal package. It was a really great experience. Antonio Mitchell and myself were able to attend a couple different MEDC presentations where we actually presented the site to developers who were interested in coming. We ended up getting 6 different proposals on that 140 South Edwards Street site. So MEDC gets you out in front of everybody. So it's a really great process. And because we're a redevelopment ready community, it's part of our technical assistance. So that is what we would propose to do when we're ready.
Good to know, Rebecca. I really appreciate it. And again, please let the staff know that I, for one, am really grateful for all the work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Other questions? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, ACM KIC, for being here today. And yeah, definitely bringing this presentation. When you see it like this, it does put it into a different perspective than I believe what we were envisioning a couple Mondays ago. And thank you, Vice Mayor Hess, for asking the questions regarding the housing, because that was going to be one of my important questions there. And ACM KIC, you actually kind of said it best, is that this is an asset. It's a city asset. And how do we manage those assets, as I'm learning in certain ways? It's also about the customer level of service. And we have to remember that our customers are the residents that are here within the city of Kalamazoo. So we want to make sure it's available for everyone to use. And I think you kind of answered that question regarding the, that Commissioner Wilson had asked regarding the fences and, locking individuals out, which we will not be doing. And then you also talked about how the bridges are failing. And what's going to be the impact of an asset failure if we don't do something with it right now? It's going to be more detrimental. It's going to cost us more money in the long run, and it's just not good for anyone that's here within the city. So I do have one question regarding, again, it is going to go back to the housing a little bit. With MEDC and their technical assistance and us being able to put out the RFPs, especially for the housing. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of when we're building housing down here, specifically in this area, that we make sure that we're building it for everyone. So you said you had a few individuals that had talked about 147 North Edward Street and putting in bids for that. Can you tell me, did any of those bids have did any of those talk about housing affordability?
We actually had 2 bids that were going to compete for low-income housing tax credits.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and I think you'd be really excited to see the way that we put together the proposal with housing and equity and with our affordable housing strategy. So, it's not just a, hey, show us what you got. It's more of a, here's what we're looking for. Here's what our community needs. Do you want to come and be a partner with us? As opposed to, a proposal that just goes out and says, what do you got for us? We know what we want.
I like that. That's, better giving them what we expect them to do versus them coming to us and saying, this is what we will do, take it or leave it.
Correct.
So I like that way a lot better. So it looks like you're going to start this if it moves forward, start in 2024, when do you think the construction would be done, or phase 1 would be done?
We think it will take just about 10 to 12 months for phase 1. And again, we're working against all the timelines. So the MEDC funding and our ARPA funding both end in 2026. So it's pretty important that we get our planning and our construction documents completed in 2024 so that we can, our timeline is kind of like get those construction documents done, get it bid. What can we start in the fall? What can we start this winter, this winter. See, guys, I'm already 2025. I'm like right there. I know. So, yeah, we need to move quickly on the design. And also, again, if we decide to move forward with this, I have a lot of conversations that I need to have with event planners and producers for the future to understand, okay, well, when would we wouldn't do anything to interrupt anything that's happening this year, right? We've made sure that we've only put holds on October of this year, so that would, if Canadiana Festival comes back, in September or whatever, and all the other events that happen in September can still happen, and then start construction in the winter, go for the full year, but we want to make sure that if anybody would need to move their event for 2025, that we get in touch with them as soon as we can so that they can start to make plans and we can help them.
How close is this to the Haymarket area?
The Haymarket, so this
going to be further
there's
up,
Water
yeah.
Street, and then Haymarket's right behind the Catalyst building, which is fronts Water Street. We're trying to attach all of our assets, right? Like, this is what's so critical about all of this work is that, again, the mall comes up to Eleanor, Arcadia to the right, Event Center to the left, how the creek gets engaged in that. And you come down the mall, and then you go to Rose Street, and you go to Bronson Park, and you've got Exchange Alley, and then you've got Bates Alley, and you've got Farmers Alley, and all of these cool amenities that people are using so differently throughout our downtown are all getting some love, right? We put the lights up in Exchange. We redid the lights in Bates. We're going to refresh the mural later this year. We're going to keep doing this work as we make our city more walkable, and we kind of get our wayfinding right as we get the streets done and the non-motorized stuff done, and then this becomes another asset that just gets looped into that network as opposed to being standalone.
Thank you for that, because I think about something that we're going to be approving today on the consent agenda for the 266 East Michigan Avenue, and you think about bringing things, uplifting what is there already within that building, and also the surrounding areas there. Thank you so much for the extra information. I do appreciate it. I'm pretty sure the commission appreciates it and the community appreciates it. Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Cooney.
Rebecca, this is a great project. Nice, really good. And it's really especially nice because you got matching funds.
Yeah.
My question is, you got $1,600,000 here. Would I rather spend $1,600,000 on this or in doing something for the homeless people when it's freezing cold and they don't have a place to go? There's people in the city now that are chipping in to get these people in motels. People in the city who are feeding these people. I think we could do a lot more for the homeless people. I think we have some good long-term plans in building things. I don't think we have good short-term plans. So that's my dilemma. You got $1,600,000 here. Do I want to vote to put it into this, or do I want to vote to put it into the homeless? That's my dilemma.
No, I totally understand, Commissioner Cooney, and I appreciate the position that you're in. I really do. And all that I ask is that we continue to have conversations about the site and what kind of budget we can put towards it, and what funds we would use in order to make sure that we can maintain the site. So that's all I would ask. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Rebecca, for your presentation. Just had a few initial thoughts. I think like just hearing from community last week, I think one of the big hurdles that I was hearing from people is just the fact that we're using ARPA specifically for this, because I think when people think of ARPA and what the intent that's used is that, the pandemic disproportionately really impacted people's lives, and, maybe, I know for a fact, proportionally caused a boost in people who found themselves in a position to be homeless. So I think that's what I heard community saying a lot, is in terms of, in terms of funding this as a source, is this the best source? But, one of the things that I think was helpful for you to dispel, and we learned a little bit last week as well, is that there was very clear intent in ARPA to spend funding on public spaces that activate community and, get people out of the house and involved in their community. And that was very intentional. There was a lot of thought that went into that when the federal government decided to do that work. And something that I've thought a lot about in the last couple of weeks as well is thinking about that kind of opportunity cost of this work, right? So that $1.6 million, yeah, that sucks that that's not going towards these immediate needs that we're seeing in our community. But what we know about this asset management perspective of like this failing community asset that we have is the cost of not investing this $1.6 million now with, by the way, $3.5 million worth of additional investment, because we're investing that $1.6 million, means down the road that we might very well be on the hook for millions of dollars without any matching support to fund that. And then that's millions of dollars that we can't be investing in gap funding for a housing project, or an opportunity that arises itself, because at that point we're forced to do it because we have no choice but to do it. I think the other important thing to think about as well is that I love seeing so many of these examples, whether it be for infrastructure or housing, that you guys have been so creative in leveraging funding opportunities. Because again, there hasn't been these opportunities to leverage funding since probably the 1930s and post-depression federal response. If we don't get smart about this opportunity to leverage those funding opportunities, when all the other communities are, dang near bankrupt because they have to respond to parks that are failing or whatever, and then they don't have money for the park or the response to their houseless crisis, we are going to be better positioned because we've been thoughtful about this work, that we are better equipped to tackle all the challenges we have before us, which includes attracting people to this community, includes tackling our houseless crisis, creating housing, all those kind of things. So, I mean, to me, this is a big picture perspective, right? I think the other thing as well is, we just heard from Jane from Discover Kalamazoo, and I know it wasn't intentional to have these presentations back to back, but she just showed us a graph that the biggest draw to Kalamazoo County, one of them was one of the things taking place in the Arcadia Festival site. So what do we want to say to everybody who's coming to our community? Is this a place you want to visit, live, or whatever? Or is this a place that, we're taking care of a lot of the challenges and are a vibrant place to live? I think that's what we want to show the world, that we can do a lot of hard things simultaneously. I think the other thing too is that I love the fact that space is such an integral part to bringing people together. You talked about the examples of how it can bring people together. There's going to be protests that happen there. There are going to be, opportunities for youth and youth activities that happen there. There's going to be opportunities to celebrate diversity. And by investing in this, we're investing in all those great things too, right? And so I definitely, I empathize, and I hear people in communities saying, like, is this the best use of ARPA? Because really, I do believe the truest, most purest intent of ARPA funding was to tackle some of the most vulnerable immediate needs of people from the pandemic. But I think that's all the more onerous that we have on ourselves and from us as commissioners and city staff and people out in the community who are looking to address issues, that we got to continue to keep our foot on the gas pedal in terms of addressing short-term and long-term immediate needs for housing. I would say maybe if there's any opportunity when we look at that development parcel that is potential there, to find any opportunity we possibly can to find gap financing, grants, incentives that are specifically geared towards making more affordable housing opportunities, if that's possible. So, you know, I personally, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, can we just motion to vote on this to get it back in the budget so you can get under work for it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other questions for ACM Kick at this point? Or comments? So just a question. I've got a couple of questions here, but just on a procedural question, just to follow right up on Commissioner Pradel's comments. Generally speaking, we're not, taking, action at the committee of the whole meeting. So how is it that you're hoping that you might get some direction related to this, Manager Isma?
Yeah, so if we get the consensus this evening to move forward, we would bring it back to the next regular meeting.
Okay.
Which would be the second meeting in February.
Okay, thank you. Hey, here's a question that's, parallel and tangential to this. I have a couple of comments also, and I don't know, ACM Kick, if you'll be fully prepared for this, but I think you'll be somewhat prepared. So related to this idea, we're doing like this either-or choice on this particular item, right? Event center or something else, not exactly specific, but something else related to assisting the unhoused population, right? So what investments are we making and have we been making in housing and those sorts of things in the city, now and in the last few years? I don't know if you have, I know you're not totally prepared for that, but off the top of your head, can you speak to that a little bit?
I know that CFO Vicenzi had some of these numbers for the last presentation, but I think in terms of,
Steve, you want to come forward and
hang out with me
help
for
out?
a second, Steve? Because I think he had a greater handle on the numbers that we did spend in housing with our ARPA funds, and I didn't want to say the wrong number. Yeah, we have over 10 million invested in whether that's our housing programs, Housing for All, foreclosure prevention, safety repairs, lead paint removal support. We have 10 million.
10 million. Is that specifically ARPA dollars or all? Okay.
That's only ARPA dollars.
So that doesn't include other housing related investments in the city of Kalamazoo.
Right, like HUD, right? We've got $2 million
CDBG
per year,
and home dollars
HUD
and
CDBG, exactly.
We got our extra
FFE,
ARPA home dollars that came into town and our extra CDBG dollars that came into town as well?
Oh, yes, we had an additional $1.8 million in home ARPA. We had, this is for FFE, $6 million budgeted over the last 3 years. Home CDBG, $9.8 million. ARPA, $10 million. Total of $26.5 million.
Okay, well, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Sorry to kind of maybe catch you off guard with that, but.
No, that's.
All right.
Thank you so much,
thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. So, here's one thing that, well, I guess in no particular order, some things I guess I'm thinking about this is that, one, the city doesn't do one thing. And we have a whole, wide variety of responsibilities. And one of the challenges, even during times of crisis, is that there's many, many things you just still keep doing because only the city does those things. Whether it's plowing streets, whether it's having youth programs at Parks and Rec, whether it is, replacing sidewalks, whether it's planting trees, whether it is, building a new building down by our farmers market, many, many things that the city does. So we've got a lot of plates that we keep spinning. And I know through the goals that we set and our budgeting process, city staff tries to take all these things that we're interested in and all the things that we must do, right? We can't just decide, I guess we could, we're just not going to plow streets any longer. Doesn't seem like that would be a wise thing to do. But you try to roll all those things together and match that sense of priority and the requirements, and and at the same time, not only addressing all these various needs, but trying to augment the resources that we have for those needs. Matching grants, we've been getting a lot. If you look across the board, there's a lot. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars of grants we'll be getting for a variety of things. Been talking about streets and whether that's important or not, but what, 20 million or something like that in the door specifically related to that. So that's also a huge benefit, to leverage our ongoing spending. This is a real community resource. It is our community resource. And so it is something that we need to take care of. I would also suggest that a thing that makes it hard sitting up here is that you could take any item in our budget and you could lay it against something else to measure. For example, I mean, you could look at any given crisis, and I would suggest even individuals who don't have housing is certainly a high priority crisis. I would also suggest that substance misuse is a huge, huge crisis in Kalamazoo. And we could take any one of those things. It just so happens we don't have anything in our budget that we spend specifically on this horrific crisis of substance misuse here in Kalamazoo. But you could take something like that and you could lay it against anything else, and you could say, this is worse than that, this is worse than that. Let's cut out parks, let's spend our money on that. So what unfortunately we have to do is just like, I guess, any home budget, is you're going to say, well, we've got our priorities, but then we're going to split it up and we're going to try to take care of all these things the best we can. I also feel that it is the case, number one, that just as you mentioned, there is a large, large investment going into housing all the way across the board here in Kalamazoo, from the city of Kalamazoo. I would say a significant and increasing commitment that's occurred over the last few years. So you've already that going on. I would also suggest that even some of that spending we've allocated for that, look, we've got rollover FFE funds this year, because you can set the money in the bank, but getting things built, getting projects through, actually doing it, there's just a limitation. Just the physical world provides a limitation. Only so much gets out the door. And so we're doing a good job of attempting to address those things. Lastly, related to that is that, I mean, in a variety of areas, whether you're talking about substance misuse, whether you're talking about our unhoused population, whether you're talking about other health challenge, for example, that might exist, those kinds of things. We do our best to work with our community partners and do our part as best we can as it relates to that. In the city of Kalamazoo, for example, we do not distribute food directly, even though we know that there's a significant amount of food insecurity that people experience. But we also have a city that provides fire services and plowing the streets and police for folks who have infrastructure here in the city of Kalamazoo that do that work. And we provide all that to entities that don't pay property taxes. So that's our contribution, whether you're talking about Loaves and Fishes over here, large institution that is off the tax rolls, whether you're talking about county offices that do that kind of work here, not on the tax rolls. So even though you don't see a dollar sign or a budget line item related to that, or even let's talk about the mission. It is the fact that I still believe that one of the highest calls for service addresses in the city of Kalamazoo happens to be the mission. And so we provide a great deal of service there, and the mission doesn't happen to be on the tax rolls. So I know it might be harder to ascribe, I mean, there's no budget line item for it, but once again, we're on call for fires. We're on calls for people who need calls and response in their worst moments, maybe having a serious health issue or in a serious disagreement with somebody, need someone to help keep them safe. we're doing all that support work. I mean, that happens in the city of Kalamazoo. Every single shelter, which there's 8, I believe, in Kalamazoo County, all in the city of Kalamazoo, all supported by the infrastructure of the city of Kalamazoo. So I just don't want us to overlook all the work that happens. As far as it goes on our partnership side, now I know people, have some, have choices, and we'll exercise those choices. But just a reminder, never are all the shelter beds full in the city of Kalamazoo. Never. Not even on the coldest nights. There is capacity to be safe and out of the weather. That's not what our nonprofit partners do. Another example, a lift up, is that no one has even come close to doing this in Kalamazoo County, but we helped fund the acquisition and renovation of a very distressed motel here in the city of Kalamazoo just very recently that provided 60 totally rehabbed, permanent, affordable units for people, not just individuals who had low incomes or no income, but people who specifically did not have permanent housing. I mean, that's a huge, huge undertaking. And continue to provide support services over there with our public services team and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'm totally sensitive. I mean, I work in the business to this idea of like, well, what about this versus this, or this versus that? But, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like we are demonstrating our commitment. This is just one of the things we need to do, and we are making the most of it. And so I'm going to be supportive of, it went through a lot of intense evaluation and thinking and vetting. I'm supportive of, having this be part of our budget, and, coming up in, a couple weeks here, we're going to have another opportunity to decide, are there ways we want to redirect our focus here at the City of Kalamazoo? We're going to have to spend a long time talking about that and building towards our 2025 budget. So I'm sorry to talk so long, but, that's where I'm going to be on this. I don't know where, without voting, how we're going to feel about putting it back, but I just want to say, I'm hoping that this will come back to us. We'll be able to put it in the budget and help you with the great work you're doing, and continue to move forward with all the things the city has to do.
Thank you. I appreciate all the time and all of the discussion tonight very much.
Thank you very much, ACM Kick. Manager Ritzma, anything?
Nope, that concludes the work session. So just to be clear, we're going to bring it back to the next meeting. I see heads nodding, so we'll plan accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate very in-depth opportunity for discussion and questions, and all the efforts of you and your team. Thank you so very much. So just a reminder for everybody now. Well, actually, I'll ask any commissioner comments for this meeting. All right, so just a reminder that we have our business meeting, same day as we have our committee of the whole meeting. That starts at 7. There'll be another opportunity for public comment at the beginning of that meeting. Those timeframes are 3 minutes to provide comments. So if you would still like to do that, you'll have an opportunity then. And we will be adjourning this meeting for now and seeing everybody in a little bit. We are adjourned.